In the world of Tamriel, being Dragonborn means carrying the soul of a dragon inside a mortal body. It sounds awesome until you realize almost everyone who ever had this gift ended up dead, betrayed, or trapped in a tentacle dimension for thousands of years. 8 individuals across thousands of years of history carried this burden, and not a single one of them got a happy ending. Let's start at the very beginning. Miraak. Miraak is the original Dragonborn, the very first mortal to harness the soul of a dragon, but also easily the most tragic. He wasn't just a Dragonborn, he was a priest of the dragon cult during the late Merethic era, the age when dragons ruled Nirn with iron claws and flame. But Miraak wasn't content to serve. Instead, he used the power granted by a mysterious and dangerous black book from Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince of forbidden knowledge, to turn that power against his dragon masters. Before you think this is just some heroic rebellion story, hear me out. Miraak's access to Mora's black book gave him more than just power. He gained entry into Apocrypha, a tentacle-infested realm of endless dark knowledge. There, he learned the Bend Will Shout, a terrifying Thuum technique that lets him dominate dragons themselves. This wasn't just shouting dragons off cliffs. Miraak could command dragons like puppets. His rebellion wasn't subtle. The dragons retaliated mercilessly, raising his temple on Solstheim. Cornered and broken, Miraak fled fully into Apocrypha. But here's where it gets dark. In trading dragon servitude for Daedric servitude, Miraak didn't win freedom. He became a prisoner of Hermaeus Mora. For millennia, he's been trapped in this mind-warping realm, painfully aware of his own fading relevance and powerless to escape. And the worst part? Hermaeus Mora wasn't done with him. When the last Dragonborn arrives centuries later, Mora engineers a fight to pit them against each other, a rigged battle to replace Miraak with a new pawn. After a brutal showdown, Miraak is defeated, only to be impaled and consumed by Mora himself, who coldly declares, "Did you think you could escape me, Miraak?" It's almost too cruel. The very dragon soul power that made Miraak a legend ends with him erased completely by the very force that empowered him. Some argue Miraak's Dragonborn status is unique. Unlike others born with the soul of a dragon, his may have been gifted or transformed through Mora's knowledge and magic, making him a cautionary figure rather than a true inheritor of dragon blood. His story is essentially a prison break that never succeeds, a dark prototype showing what happens when dragon-souled power serves personal ambition unchecked. No empire, no religion, no lasting legacy, just isolation in a Lovecraftian dimension for endless millennia. Miraak's fate is a stark warning that raw power without purpose or balance only leads to oblivion. If you think that's bad, wait until you hear about Saint Alessia, the founder of the Dragonborn legacy and the woman who took that power and forged an empire. Saint Alessia. Saint Alessia is the architect of everything that comes after her. Without her, there's no Amulet of Kings, no dragonfires, no covenant keeping Tamriel safe from the Daedra. She wasn't your typical Dragonborn spitting shouts or slaying dragons. Instead, she used her dragon blood to build a civilization and establish a new order between mortals and gods. Before you dismiss her because she's not swinging around Thuum like Miraak or the last Dragonborn, hear me out. Alessia started as a Nedic slave woman living under the brutal rule of the Ayleid sorcerer kings in Cyrodiil. Around 1E 242, she led the human rebellion that crushed Elven dominion, uniting humans and sympathetic Elven rebels alike. During the darkest days of this fight, Alessia prayed to the Aedra for help. Akatosh answered by forging a divine covenant with her, granting her the Amulet of Kings and the power to light the eternal dragonfires. This wasn't just a fancy heirloom. The amulet and dragonfires together create a metaphysical barrier preventing Daedric princes from fully manifesting on Nirn. The covenant was sealed in the blood of Alessia's line, meaning only those with her dragon-blessed bloodline could wield the amulet and maintain this barrier. She essentially invented the political and spiritual category of Dragonborn. It's not just about raw power, but about maintaining cosmic order and imperial sovereignty. Dragon blood became the legal foundation for rulership in the Empire, something no Dragonborn before her had done. While Alessia doesn't roar or summon dragons, her Dragonborn status literally reshaped the course of Nirn's history. The covenant she established held strong for over 3 millennia, shaping key events like the Oblivion Crisis far down the timeline. And here's the kicker. After her death, Akatosh granted Alessia a saintly apotheosis, turning her soul into a tutelary spirit protecting Cyrodiil and the imperial line forever. Divine legacy on a scale nobody else touches. She also secured military support from Nordic forces and rebel Ayleids who opposed the Daedra-worshipping city-states. She wasn't leading in isolation, but building an alliance that upended the existing power structure, paving the way for the Alessian Empire. The covenant she forged with Akatosh rewired the relationship between mortals, gods, and Daedra. Planet-wide consequences, zero exaggeration. The contrast with Miraak is sharp. He used dragon power for himself and ended up consumed by Hermaeus Mora. Alessia used her dragon blood for others and built a civilization that lasted centuries. She's not just a Dragonborn. She's the reason the Dragonborn exist as more than chaotic outliers in Tamriel's history. Alessia isn't a historical footnote. She's the cosmic gatekeeper whose legacy underpins the entire empire. Without her covenant and bloodline, bloodline, none of the later emperors would have a claim to legitimacy, and the Daedra would have long ago run rampant across Nirn. But if you think Alessia's impact is big, just wait until you hear about the Dragonborn who followed her footsteps centuries later and built the Second Empire, Riemann Cyrodiil. Riemann Cyrodiil is the most important emperor nobody remembers. Ask any Elder Scrolls fan to name a Dragonborn emperor and they'll say Tiber Septim, maybe Martin. Nobody says Riemann. But this guy built the Second Empire, turned an invading army into his personal bodyguard service, and laid the groundwork for everything Tiber Septim gets credit for. Here's what happened. Near the end of the First Era, the Akaviri show up, specifically the Saishi, a race of serpent folk from across the ocean, and they launch a full-scale invasion of Tamriel, an alien army rolling through the continent with zero intention of stopping. Remen rallies the forces of Cyrodiil and meets them at the Battle of Pale Pass. He wins, decisively. But the Akaviri don't just surrender. They kneel. They swear allegiance to him on the spot because they sense something in his blood that matches their own Dragonborn traditions. These invaders crossed an ocean looking for a Dragonborn, and they found one standing on the other side of a battlefield. An entire foreign military shows up to conquer your homeland, you beat them, and instead of retreating, they go, actually, you're our boss now. That's not a military victory. That's a theological one. Remen didn't just defeat the Akaviri. He accidentally fulfilled their prophecy. These former invaders become the Dragon Guard, the elite protectors sworn to serve the Dragonborn. That's the direct precursor to the Blades. Every time you see Delphine being insufferable in Skyrim, that tradition traces back to snake people who got religiously humbled by one guy's blood. His Dragonborn status gets confirmed through two channels. The Akaviri recognition, which is cross-cultural validation from a civilization obsessed with dragons, and his connection to the Amulet of Kings, proving he carries the covenant blood of Alessia's line. The man had receipts from two independent sources. From there, Riemann builds the framework of a pan-Tamrielic state, the infrastructure, the institutions, the political architecture that Tiber Septim would later inherit and complete. Riemann did the hard part of proving the concept, and Tiber got the credit for finishing the job. His dynasty maintained control for generations, which is more than most Dragonborn can claim. But Riemann himself, assassinated. Somebody decided the God Emperor needed to go, and they made it happen. Not exactly a peaceful retirement. Here's what makes Riemann genuinely fascinating. His dragon blood functions as mythic soft power. He doesn't shout people apart or absorb dragon souls. He transforms an existential military threat into the foundation of his government's enforcement arm. The Akaviri went from invaders to the backbone of imperial power. That's not a superpower in the traditional sense. That's political alchemy, and yet nobody talks about. Tiber Septim conquered the continent and became a literal god, so he gets all the attention. But Riemann proved that Dragonborn blood could do something even stranger than conquering. It could make your enemies worship you without a single word of the Thu'um. But if Riemann built the blueprint for empire, the man who perfected it turned himself into something else entirely. Tiber Septim. Every Dragonborn before this guy was powerful. Some were world-changing. But Tiber Septim is the one who became a god. And not in the vague, mythological, people tell stories about him around campfires sense. He literally joined the divine pantheon. His face is on the coins, his name is in the prayers, and centuries after his death, entire wars are being fought over whether or not he counts as the ninth divine. Let me back up. Born in the late Second Era under a pile of different names, including Hjalti Earlybeard and Talos Stormcrown, this guy rose from essentially nothing to become the supreme warlord who unified nearly all of Tamriel under single banner. He founded the Septim dynasty, established the Third Empire, and did it all with combination of military genius, political ruthlessness, and one very large brass robot. His Dragonborn status isn't debatable. It's triple confirmed. The Greybeards summoned him to High Hrothgar and named him Ysmir, Dragon of the North. He wore the Amulet of Kings and lit the dragon fires, proving he carried the covenant blood of Alessia's line. And after death, he ascended to godhood as Talos, the ninth divine. That's three separate verification systems all agreeing. This man has a dragon soul. But here's where it gets complicated. During his conquests, Tiber deployed the Numidium, a colossal Dwemer brass golem that essentially breaks reality when you turn it on. Its activation caused massive temporal distortions and likely contributed to the dragon break known as the Warp in the West, an event where time literally fractured into multiple contradictory timelines that all happened simultaneously. You know, normal conquest stuff, and then he died and became a god, which sounds straightforward until you realize that nobody can agree on how. The controversial Arcturian heresy proposes that Talos isn't one person at all. It's an oversoul, a fusion of multiple mortal identities, including Hjalti Earlybeard, the Underking, and possibly Zurin Arcus, his imperial battle mage. Three men, one divine entity. Other metaphysical treatises suggest he achieved Si-Che-Ayam, a state of enlightened self-awareness so rare and so bizarre that it essentially lets a mortal look at the fabric of the universe, realize none of it is real, and instead of ceasing to exist, just decide not to. And somehow that makes you a god. I don't know what to tell you. Elder Scrolls metaphysics are built different, but the truly fascinating part of Tiber Septim's legacy isn't what happened during his life. It's what happened centuries after his death. His Dragonborn identity became a theological battleground. The Thalmor ban on Talos worship under the White Gold Concordat isn't just religious persecution for the fun of it. It's a calculated attack on the foundational myth that legitimizes human empire. If Talos isn't a real god, then a dragonborn ascending to divinity is a lie. And if that's a lie, then the entire justification for human dominion over Tamriel crumbles. Tiber Septim is the dragonborn who became too big for history to contain, conqueror or liberate, one man or three, genuine god or political fabrication. The argument about what he was is the central conflict of the Fourth Era, and it's still not resolved. But if you think becoming a literal deity makes your bloodline untouchable, wait until you hear what happened to his last descendant sitting on the throne, Emperor Uriel Septim. The most dragonborn on this list are warriors, conquerors, or prophesied heroes. Uriel Septim VII is a bureaucrat, an 87-year-old man sitting on a throne, signing documents, and quietly keeping hell from spilling into reality through the sheer fact of his bloodline. And honestly, that might be the most terrifying dragonborn story of all. Here's the thing about Uriel. He ascends to the Ruby Throne in 3E368 and proceeds to rule for 65 years. That includes a decade where he wasn't even technically present because his battle mage Jagar Tharn imprisoned him in oblivion and impersonated him for 10 years during the Imperial Simulacrum. Nobody noticed. The entire empire was being run by a body double and the wheels just kept turning, which is, not ideal for the guy whose literal blood is the only thing maintaining a cosmic barrier against Daedric invasion, but Uriel survives that. He survives Daggerfall's political nightmare. He survives decades of conspiracies and assassination attempts. The man is the connective tissue of the entire Elder Scrolls series. Nearly every playable hero before Skyrim either directly serves him or is cleaning up a mess that happened on his watch. He's not the Emperor of Conquest. He's the Emperor of Heroes, quietly dispatching champions to fix problems while he maintains the Dragonfires and wears the Amulet of Kings like a man carrying a bomb he can never put down, and that's what makes his ending so devastating. By 3E433, the mythic Dawn has already killed every single one of his known sons. When we meet Uriel in the sewers beneath the Imperial City at the start of Oblivion, he's not running in panic. He knows exactly what's happening. The man has prophetic dreams. He's seen his own death. He tells you as much. Then he hands you the Amulet of Kings, tells you to find a man named Martin in Kvatch, and dies, stabbed by cultists in a sewer passage. 65 years of holding reality together, ended by a dagger. What makes this hit so hard is the scale of what unravels. Uriel's death isn't just a political assassination, it's a structural failure in the universe's defense system. The Dragonfires go out, the barriers between Nirn and Oblivion collapse. Mehrunes Dagon starts pouring demons through gates across the entire continent. 3,000 years of Alessia's covenant, maintained by an unbroken chain of dragon-blooded emperors, snapped because one tired old man finally ran out of time and had no heir left standing. That's the real horror of Uriel Septim VII. He's not powerful. He can't shout. He can't absorb dragon souls. He can't conquer nations with the Thuum. He's just a man whose blood happens to be load-bearing architecture for the entire planet, and he carried that weight for 65 years, knowing that the moment he died without a successor, everything would break. Cool. Add that to the list of reasons the Septim dynasty is fundamentally a terrible system for cosmic security. But if you think Uriel's death is where this story ends, you're wrong, because his last surviving son, a priest who didn't even know he was royalty, is about to become the most important person in Tamriel, and his story ends in a way that makes his father's assassination look peaceful by comparison. Martin Septim. Every other dragonborn on this list either chose power, inherited it, or stole it. Martin Septim had it thrown at him like a grenade while he was minding his own business praying in a chapel. The man was a priest in Kvatch, completely unaware that his father was the Emperor of Tamriel. Then one afternoon, Daedra pour out of the sky, his city burns, and some random prisoner tells him he's the last heir to the Ruby Throne. Cool. Normal Tuesday. Martin is the illegitimate son of Uriel Septim VII, hidden at birth, raised with zero knowledge of his bloodline. No royal tutoring, no combat training, no preparation whatsoever. The mythic Dawn assassinated every known Septim heir in a coordinated strike, meaning Martin went from guy who reads scripture to literally the only person who can prevent reality from collapsing in about 48 hours. And he steps up. Reluctantly, but he steps up. His dragonborn status gets confirmed when he puts on the Amulet of Kings and it doesn't kill him. Only those carrying Alessia's dragon blood can wear it. The moment it sits around his neck without incinerating him, the question is settled. His plan is straightforward. Relight the Dragonfires at the Temple of the One, reseal the barrier between Nirn and Oblivion, save everything. But Mehrunes Dagon doesn't wait politely for the coronation. The Daedric Prince of Destruction physically manifests in the Imperial City, not an avatar. The actual prince, towering over buildings, tearing the city apart. And Martin makes a decision no other Dragonborn has ever made. He shatters the Amulet of Kings, destroys it completely, channels his dragon blood combined with the power of Akatosh to transform into a massive fiery dragon avatar. Then he fights a Daedric prince in the middle of the Imperial City and wins, banishes banishes Mehrunes Dagon back to oblivion and permanently seals the barrier. The cost is everything. After the battle, the dragon avatar turns to stone. Martin's body is gone, his soul presumably absorbed into Akatosh's manifestation. All that remains is an enormous petrified dragon statue in the Temple of the One. He's the only Dragonborn who literally, visibly, becomes a dragon. Not metaphorically, not in some abstract theological sense scholars argue about later. He transforms on screen, in front of witnesses, and never comes back. But here's what makes his sacrifice truly staggering. He didn't just end his life or his bloodline. He destroyed the entire system. The amulet shattered. The dragonfires rendered unnecessary. Alessia's covenant superseded by whatever new arrangement his sacrifice created. After Martin, dragon blood can never again function as political technology. No future emperor can point to the amulet and say the gods chose my family. That framework is gone permanently. It's not a death. It's an extinction event for a way of organizing reality. 3,000 years of institutional dragon blood, from Alessia through Raymond through Tiber through Uriel, all ending in one priest's decision to break the rules rather than play by them. Martin didn't maintain the covenant, he replaced it, and it cost him everything he was. Now, if Martin represents the emotional peak of the Imperial Dragonborn era, the most heroic sacrifice in the series, then we need to talk about someone who represents the exact opposite. Someone who wore the Amulet of Kings despite having absolutely no right to it. Mankar Cameron. Everything about the Dragonborn lineage is supposed to be clean. Akatosh blesses a bloodline. That bloodline rules. They wear the amulet. They light fires. End of story. It's a tidy system. And then this guy shows up and breaks absolutely everything. Mankar Cameron is the son of Cameron the Usurper, a Bosmeri king. His mother was a Bosmer woman named Kalis. So racially, politically, genealogically, he has zero business being anywhere near the Dragonborn lineage. He's not human. He's not Nedic. He's not part of Alessia's covenant in any way that makes sense on paper. And yet, when you finally track him down in Oblivion, standing in his personal paradise of Gair Alada, he's wearing the Amulet of Kings, the one artifact that, according to every piece of Imperial doctrine ever written, can only be worn by those carrying the dragon blood. He's got it on like it's a fashion accessory. Nobody in the game explains this. Not a single character addresses it. It just happens, and you're supposed to deal with it. 3 theories exist, and none of them are comforting. Theory 1, Mankar actually has undocumented dragon blood through some obscure mixed ancestry nobody tracked. Theory 2, Mehrunes Dagon, through the Mysterium Xarxes, essentially hacked the rules of the Covenant, allowing Mankar to bypass the restriction. Theory 3, and this is the one that keeps lore scholars up at night. The doctrine that only dragon blood can wear the amulet was always more of a theological assertion than a hard metaphysical law, meaning the Empire built its entire legitimacy on a rule that might just be a suggestion. Every single one of those answers is destabilizing. Here's the thing about Mankar, though. He wasn't just some thief who stole a necklace. He was a true believer. His 4-volume Mythic Dawn commentaries lay out an entire alternative theology where the divines are false consciousness, where Mehrunes Dagon isn't a destroyer but a liberator freeing mortals from an oppressive reality. If he does carry dragon blood, then his commentaries become a rival gospel, a dragon-bloated figure rejecting the very covenant that's supposed to define what dragon blood means. He built the Mythic Dawn from the ground up, orchestrated the assassination of Uriel Septim VII and every known heir, stole the amulet, created an entire pocket dimension using the Mysterium Xarxes. The man was thorough, and his death is appropriately theatrical. You fight through Paradise, kill his children, and put him down in his own realm. The moment he dies, Paradise disintegrates around you and the amulet is recovered. His entire constructed reality was held together by him and whatever power he channeled. Pull the plug and it all goes dark, but the question remains. No primary text ever calls Mankar Dragonborn. No authoritative source explains the mechanism behind the amulet. He's just there, wearing it, being impossible, and nobody ever addresses it. He's either proof that dragon blood is stranger and less exclusive than the Empire wants you to believe, or proof that Daedric princes can rewrite divine covenants if they try hard enough. Both options mean the neat little system everyone relied on for 3,000 years had cracks in it the whole time, which is, not ideal for an empire that based its entire claim to power on that system being airtight. But if Mankar Cameron unsettles you, wait until you meet the person who made the whole concept of Dragonborn obsolete entirely. The last Dragonborn. The last Dragonborn isn't just another chapter in the saga of Dragonborn. They are the culmination, the final expression of a lineage that stretches back through myth, empire, and prophecy. When you first meet them, they're an unnamed prisoner doomed to die at Helgen. Then Alduin, the World Eater, crashes the execution, setting off the entire chain of events that define Skyrim. That's not just a cool intro moment. It's a sign this is the one destined to rewrite history. Shortly after escaping, the Dragonborn kills a dragon at the Western Watchtower by Whiterun in front of witnesses, absorbing its soul in that unforgettable instant. The Greybeards immediately recognize this, calling the Dragonborn to train in the Thuum, unlike earlier Dragonborn emperors who wielded dragon blood as a political tool more than a raw power. The last Dragonborn Dragonborn exhibits full mastery over dragon souls, shouts, and even bending the wills of dragons themselves. The prophecy attached to the last Dragonborn is epic in scope. Traveling back in time through an Elder Scroll to witness the ancient Dragon War, the Dragonborn learns Dragonrend, the shout that forces even the mighty Alduin back down to human scale. Their final showdown happens in Sovngarde, the Nordic afterlife, where the last Dragonborn fights alongside the spirits of ancient Nord heroes to finally put an end to the World Eater's threat. No previous Dragonborn has had a story climaxing in such a cosmic battle, yet the last Dragonborn is not just a savior, they are also a conqueror of legacies. In the Dragonborn DLC, they travel to Solstheim, confront Miraak, the original Dragonborn turned rogue, and defeat him in Hermaeus Mora's shadowy realm of Apocrypha. This victory marks the last Dragonborn as the sole active dragon-souled individual on Nirn, and it's packed with moral ambiguity given Hermaeus Mora's manipulative role. Their power is untethered, wild, and entirely their own. On the political front, they can become an absurd juggernaut of influence, leader of the Dark Brotherhood, Thieves Guild, Companions, and College of Winterhold, Thane of multiple holds, and a key player in Skyrim's Civil War. No other Dragonborn amassed this level of concentrated power. The title, Last, is no accident. It signals an ending. After them, the era of Dragonborn linked to Empire and Covenant fades away. There will be no next Dragonborn carrying the mantle. That lastness carries huge implications for Tamriel's metaphysics. The dragon-souled champions empowered by Akatosh to fix cosmic imbalances may finally be a closed chapter. Unlike the Imperial Dragonborn of old, who embodied a covenantal destiny, the last Dragonborn emerges outside any bloodline or religious ritual. Dragon blood has shed its old skin as political technology and becomes something unpredictable, individual, and untamable. Their ultimate fate remains a deliberate mystery. No canonical tale tells us what happens once Alduin falls and Miraak is defeated. The last Dragonborn could ascend to godhood like Tiber's Septum, fade into legend, or disappear into obscurity. The player's choices fill in the blanks, shaping the legacy or closure of the Dragonborn mythos. So this is where the entire Dragonborn saga comes to its peak, and then breaks apart. The last Dragonborn carries echoes of every predecessor: Miraak's dangerous power, Alessia's covenantal importance, Tiber Septim's godlike glory, Martin Septim's sacrificial heroism. But there's no dynasty behind them, no institution, no promise of a continued line, just one individual standing at the end of an impossible legacy. They are the last Dragonborn, the final, unfettered, and uncertain chapter in a history of dragon-blooded champions rewriting fate itself. After them, the dragons are dealt with, the old covenant shattered, and the story hangs on a question mark. What now, when there is no next? If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.